Is Malachi Corley about to become the latest example of a young, promising offensive player that the New York Jets failed to develop? I'm Glenn Naughton with JetNation Radio and JetNation.com. Be sure to log into JetNation.com where you can register and become a part of what is the most active Jets message board on the web. A little bit different time today. Again, working around schedules with myself, Chris Dillon. Dillon should be joining us shortly. No Chris today, but wanted to talk about a quote that I saw pop up a day or two ago from offensive coordinator Todd Downing, who basically said, when asked about Malachi Corley, his lack of playing time, his lack of opportunities, and please stop me if you've heard this before. It almost looks like Downing mentally went back in his Rolodex and said to himself, "Man, I saw Robert Saleh answer a question like this once about Denzel Mims. What did he say? Oh yeah, here we go. I'll just go ahead and replace Denzel's name with Malachi when I answer. Malachi's got a bright future in this league. He's still got a skill set that will eventually help teams win football games." He didn't say this team. Right now, though, he's fighting to get scraps from Devontae and G and Allen and so on. By G, I guess he means Garrett Wilson, who had 5 targets the other day, maybe 6. Here's the thing, folks. NFL teams can line up as many as 5 wide receivers at one time. I think the Jets forget this when they try to sell this line to fans. Oh, we have like 2 other guys that we have to include. Yeah, you can line up 5 and you do it. You often line up 5 guys or 4 guys. He's just not one of them. And when he is, you're not throwing him the football. And you can make all the excuses you want, but how many offensive players can this staff fail to develop before we say something's not right here? Right? You look back at the history over the last 4, 5, 6 years of offensive players that this team has taken. We talked about Denzel Mims, promising rookie season. He's a guy that some people projected as a first-round pick. The Jets draft him in round 2. He misses most of the first half of the season with hamstrings, whatever it was. He had a couple of injuries early on. And he comes out as a rookie under Adam Gase, 357 yards receiving, 15.5 per catch on 23 receptions. So he looked good. And if you think back, he made some impressive plays, high pointing the ball, catching the ball in the crowd, jumping over guys, sort of using, playing to his strengths. After that season, after that 357-yard season, that was it for Denzel Mims. There was no take the next step. He had 133 yards the following year on 8 catches, and then 11 catches for 186 in his third and final year with the Jets before being let go. Hasn't done much of anything since then. Michael P. Ryan, which honestly, I never got that pick. Didn't love him. Didn't think he was a great player. He's hung around. He was with the Chiefs, I think, as recently as this year on their practice squad. I can't say for sure if he's managed to. No, he's not played in the game in a couple of years, which is what I thought was the case. Then you look at guys like Michael Carter, running back Michael Carter, who he might be, honestly. If you look at him statistically, you look at guys taken outside of the top 2 rounds, outside of the top 100 picks under Joe Douglas, he might be statistically the most successful player. But he's another one. Year 1 with the New York Jets. Michael Carter rushes for 639 yards. Year 2, that dips to 402. Year 3, that dips to 187. Year 4, he gets let go. Oh, I'm sorry, 187 was his total. Between the Cardinals and Jets, the Jets, of course, let him go sort of mid-season following a players-only meeting where I can only imagine he said something the coaches didn't love. And we are joined now by Dylan Terraman. Dylan, we're digging into offensive rookies, young offensive players, I should say, the Jets have drafted. Talked about Denzel Mims, who showed promise as a rookie, fell apart after that. We're talking about Michael Carter, who showed promise as a rookie, did nothing after that. Haven't gotten really to many other names. We've got, of course, Elijah Moore, who is another guy who probably showed more as a rookie than he did at any other time as a Jet. And now Denzel or Elijah Moore hasn't been great, but he had 700 yards last year. A couple good games this year when he got on the field, but now that Browns offense has fallen apart and nobody's really producing. So I don't know if that's lack of talent from Moore or. And look, I said Moore needed to go. He was immature. He had growing up to do. But I also said he was a talented guy. And if you look
Yeah.
at the numbers, you look at his separation numbers from the day he was drafted up until today, the guy gets open. He's just either played in offenses where they don't throw him the ball or where the quarterback who's trying to get him the ball isn't a very good football player. So I mentioned Carter Dillon. He ran for 639 as a rookie, 402 in his second year, and then fell off the map and basically did absolutely nothing for the New York Jets on offense. Elijah Moore, I just mentioned. We talked about Michael Carter. Then you look, of course, and I'm talking top 100 guys because, of course, Brees, Garrett, great players. Jeremy Ruckert. Look, I don't think Jeremy Ruckert should be Jason Kelsey, but my God, is this guy? I mean, I think the experiment's over. Is he going to have a year where he breaks 100 or 150, 200 yards? I don't think he's a great player, but I don't think he is the completely useless player the Jets have turned him into. I would venture to guess there are a lot of teams that would have gotten more out of him. And what's with the dropping of the football? This is Michael Carter and Jeremy Ruckert, same thing. Guys had great hands out of college, never dropped the ball. A couple years with the Jets, and they can't catch a cold. I'm not suggesting the Jets are coaching them and telling them to drop the football, but this certainly seems to be a trend of offensive players under this organization regressing. Zach Kuntz, we've not seen. Aaron Rodgers told us this offseason about how he was building chemistry with Kuntz and he looked so good. And look, I get that it's, he's pumping up his own guys. But Kuntz, kind of a 7th-round pick, hadn't played, kind of a weird random guy to mention as someone you feel you're building chemistry with, and then he can't get on the field. Izzy Abanikanda couldn't get on the field. And I mentioned, of course, that Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis, have shown promise. So there may be something there. I believe there is. We'll see if the Jets don't wreck that. And then Corley, who can't get on the field. I quoted Todd Downing, Dylan, who basically sounded as if he cut out Robert Saleh's old quotes about Denzel Mims and just inserted the name Malachi Corley about how he's going to be a good player.
Yeah, the thinking from the coaching staff just seems to be very out of whack. Just thinking about all those names that you just threw out there, they all had glimmers of success, sure, but you got to look at the guy who was coaching them, I think, and how much of an upgrade he was compared to what we have. And I don't think that guy was appreciated quite as much as he should have been, because Nathaniel Hackett has been absolutely putrid. Todd Downing has been better, but you just don't see any development. And he even said it in his presser. He's like, we're going for wins, not development. And if that's the case, that's great. But we don't have either one. We don't have wins and we don't have development.
Yeah, I guess that's why we have all those wins, because they're not worried about development. They're focusing on all those wins.
Yeah, it's very hard to find one player on the offense that's like, okay, yeah, we've seen him developed throughout the season. And like you said, the rookie running backs have done well, but I feel like running back is a position, and we've seen it with Brees. Even behind a bad O-line, you can make things work. It's not always about the coach scheming you into good rushing lanes and everybody executing and you developing that way. Running back is kind of one of those where it's you can just hand the guy the ball and make things happen. Everywhere else, though, you have no development. Garrett Wilson is saying how he might have taken his time with Mike LaFleur for granted in his rookie year because it was a special time and the offense was doing things that we don't see anymore. I mean, I go back to the Packers play with Breece Hall.
Creative.
And yeah, exactly. I mean, I understand Elijah Moore was running orbit motions 88% of the time and not touching the ball, but there were creative wrinkles in Mike LaFleur's offense that we have just never seen again. And there's some, things that they tried to do this year that have worked, some things that definitely haven't worked, but it's just not enough of a modern offense. So you have to look at the coaching staff, and that's kind of the whole theme of this is the coaches failing again. And I think that's what we have in Malachi Corley. Sure, you could talk about his maturity and whatnot. I think he grew after he dropped the ball at the end zone. That's just a boneheaded play. It's a stupid play. We've seen it happen. It happened twice 2 weeks ago. Defender for the Bengals, and then Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor is a very well-established person in this league, so it's not a matter of he's just a rookie making a mistake. No, this happens. People get careless with the ball. He's obviously going to learn from it, but the coaching staff needs to do a much more proactive job of, one, making him active on game day. This is just ridiculous. How do you not have your gadget player? You're just going to eliminate it from your offense by not making him active? We know what Xavier Gibson is. He's not going to be your gadget guy. None of the other wide receivers are more gadget guys that you can scheme touches for. Obviously, we want Garrett to touch the ball more, but Malachi Corley was supposed to just be another, notch in the tool belt for Aaron Rodgers of like, okay, I got Garrett, I got Brees, I have Conklin. Now I have a Malachi Corley who I can scheme touches for behind the line of scrimmage, easy yak opportunities, and the coaching staff just doesn't do it. Maybe it's coaching, maybe it's Rodgers. I don't think it's enough of Rodgers to say, like, if Rodgers wanted the guy on the field, he'd be on the field. We've seen that before. Like we've seen him drag up like a Malik Taylor over other guys on the Packers before. So like that's not the issue. I just think it's coaching, and they just don't have any idea how to use any of their players, quite frankly. Conklin's used wrong. Ruckert's used ineffectively and inefficiently because he is dropping passes in the flat and he is getting like 5 to 7 yards at a clip. Just keep him in as your pseudo fullback and use Kenny Yeboah as your tight end too. You're not getting any development from your wide receivers. Like I mentioned, Garrett just wants the ball more, and like he needs it. Like he absolutely needs the ball more because he's open. But obviously Devontae is going to get like the majority of these touches as long as, they're in the red zone and Aaron's going for 500. The ball's probably going to Devontae. I don't know if Dano's in here. I don't know if we've seen him in the chat, but I was on his show last Friday and I said that. I was like, look, he's at 498. He's going to be selfish to try to get to 500. It's probably going to go to one of his boys, Lazard and Adams. They should have handed the ball to Brees. I said that on whatever day we were, Monday, when we were all three of us. Should have handed the ball to Brees in the red zone at least one time. From an efficiency standpoint, that is going to give you your best odds to score. But he got a little selfish, and that's what's going to happen the rest of this season. We're out of the playoffs. We're playing for personal bests. Garrett needs 13 yards for 1,000. Brees might need like 60 yards a game to get 1,000 rushing or whatever it is. So like that's what we're going to go for. We're not going to go for the most efficient plays, the smartest plays. Yeah, we're not going to go for wins or development. We're just going to go for everybody kind of have fun. Coaching staff isn't going to stop anybody, which I blame coaching more than anything. I mean, coaching can stop all this. They can say, no, we're going to run the ball when we get inside the 6-yard line or whatever it was last week, where they just were force feeding passes. It's like, no, when we get in this situation in the low red zone, we're going to run the ball with our best players, Brees, Braylon, Isaiah, those guys that have been, doing well for us the last couple of weeks. I get it. The fade route, whatever. Garrett wanted it last week when it was to him in Jacksonville. Now he doesn't want it when it's to Devontae. I get it. Like everybody's frustrated. Everybody just wants the ball, but this is what we're going to see from the offense is no development and a little bit of selfishness going forward.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, in terms of the play calling, we all said, whether it doesn't matter if it's Downing or whether it's Hackett, when Rodgers got here, all the talk was, it doesn't matter who the coordinator is. Rodgers is going to get to the line and audible to what he wants.
Yeah.
So how much, but not just him, but any quarterback, it's like, oh, the quarterback calls the plays and they throw the ball 94% of the time in the red zone. Like somebody's trying to get their touchdown pass numbers, to climb the list of all timers instead of focusing on things like, oh, this might be a run for Brees right here. Everything has to be a pass for me to get another touchdown. And that's been all season. I mean, their season long numbers are, I believe, tops in the NFL in terms of percentage of throws within the red zone. The Jets throw it more than anybody. At least they had a couple of weeks ago when I looked into it, and it's not as if they've backed off of that. Now, listen, nobody cares if you do that if you're winning, but when you're not winning, you're not mixing it up, and you're prioritizing personal records over the team. That's a thing where it's hard to argue with the people who were saying Aaron Rodgers is, selfish, narcissist, all this stuff. Which I want Rodgers to go out and play well and shut these people up who don't like him. But the facts are the facts, and this team just throws the ball constantly. We've talked, well, hell, I've been talking for over a year about how unhappy Garrett Wilson is. And you can't imagine this is making him any happier, that he's having to have, dry spells of not really seeing the football because Aaron is worried about, setting records with his buddy instead of throwing to the open man.
I'm muted here because I'm trying to count how many plays they had in the red zone. 1, 2, 5, 7, 10 plays against Los Angeles in the red zone. Can you guess how many of them were designed run plays?
2. 1. I knew it was 1. I was like, I'll be generous and say
penalties.
They had another one.
They had 2 penalties. They had a delay of game on Rodgers and a holding on Fashanu, but they had 1 designed run play, and it went for 1 yard.
I was going to say, it got
sandwiched in between 2 pass plays to Devontae Adams. They scored the touchdown. It was for $4.99. It was a pass, then a run, then a play action pass.
Right.
But then it went pass, pass, penalty, pass for the other plays. So it's like we knew what it was. Like I don't know. I feel like it's unfortunate when the game is within reach and it's 9-6 or 6-6, whatever the score was when they were in the red zone that time where they went pass, and ended up, I think, kicking no, they went for it and they missed it. They didn't score anything. Yeah, no, they kicked a field goal. I'm sorry. They kicked a field goal from the 3-yard line. The only time they didn't go for it on 4th down was when they were at 3rd and goal from the 3. So red zone efficiency, trash, which I guess Nate Hackett's probably not doing anything at this point because red zone was like his specialty. So you'd think you demote him from offensive coordinator. He's going to at least do the gold zone stuff with him and Rodgers again, at least try to create that spark. No.
But I think that was terrible with him too. I mean,
well
I think
in Green Bay it worked.
In years past.
Yeah, 5 years ago it worked. And obviously you have to wonder how much of that is like the LaFleur
that's where you wonder
too. Yeah. So
yeah.
But that's what it's going to be. And this week, if we have the opportunity in the red zone, I hope they at least give it to somebody in the backfield on a handoff.
I say just let it rip. Drop back and keep throwing bombs to Devontae until you get your record and then play football.
Like, well, if that's the case,
you're losing games anyway.
If they came out like that first drive, great drive. Everybody was so excited for that 14-play, 99-yard drive, and it ended in a touchdown to Devontae. Nobody cared. After that, it was force-fed. And, like, if we just get, like you said, in this situation against the Bills, say they come out in the first drive and they score a touchdown. It's to Devontae. It's number 500. I wonder if that is going to just stop all the selfishness in the red zone. And, like, all of a sudden now we're just playing football again instead of, and that's probably my biggest gripe with Rodgers this whole season has just been this game, because other than that, you can justify the other situations where, like, okay, maybe coverage dictated or you had to leave the pocket, whatever. But, like, this game on the eye test alone was proof that you were just forcing it. And, like, I thought maybe Lazard would get a chance to catch some of these touchdowns. It didn't even look like it was Lazard. It was just all Devontae. And, like, there were chances where Garrett was open. And it's like, why aren't you even trying for Garrett in the end zone? Like, you don't want to get him like a chance to get 500. I understand. That's the part to me that's the most frustrating.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I think it's so frustrating to root for this team. Like, every week there's got to be something. And if Garrett Wilson does demand a trade, I don't think this will be. I said I thought he would last season, but this certainly doesn't help matters. If Rodgers comes back and Adams comes back, he's 1,000,000% demanding a trade. He's not going to be like, I'm not going to be there to be a decoy so these guys can set more records together. Like, I want to win some football games.
Yeah, unless the coach says, hey, Aaron, you're not only going to learn our scheme, but you're going to prioritize both of your guys equally fair, equal opportunity employment. It's not going to be, I get to the line, I like Adams, no safety help over the top, and I don't care what Garrett's doing in the middle, because he had a two-way go on 4th and 4. And I know everybody's talked about it ad nauseum at this point, but, like, that's the play where, like, if Garrett had justification for being upset, it's that play on 4th and 4, because he dusted his guy to the inside in the slot. I understand it's the route that Garrett preferred. It was the fade route to Devontae, but, like, it was a low percentage throw, and Rodgers threw it bad. Like, it was very good coverage. Devontae had no separation. He would have had to moss the guy completely, and Garrett had 3 steps on the guy in the middle. So just an unfortunate look. And I just, like you said, I hope he gets 500 out of the way so that we could just go back to playing carefree football and, like, having fun again.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, what's the next record? What's the next milestone? Who does he have to pass next? Like, is there somebody who's 526 to jump someone, and then Devontae becomes the target for 4 weeks again? So
I think 500, if he threw it to Devontae, would also give them sole claim of 3rd place in the quarterback wide receiver records, because with 499 they tied Marino and Clayton. So maybe that's something they want to just be not tied for 3rd. They want to be 3rd. Like, it's all going to be individual records. But last year we saw it with Breece Hall. So, like, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm okay with them doing it with Breece last year and not getting it, because nobody can fucking count. Sorry. But, like, nobody can count to 1,000. So he stopped at 994 and everybody was okay with it last year. So I'm going to have to sit here and not be hypocritical and say I'm okay with it.
Well, it's different when you're the running back, because that's the coaches calling for you to get the ball. When you're the quarterback, you're the one who says, I don't care what the coaches are calling. I'm going to audible into something that's better for me and
I
Devontae.
don't think Todd Downing is stopping him from getting to 500.
Well, that's what I was going to say. When you said about coaches telling him, I don't think you tell Aaron Rodgers anything.
No,
You
there's
can
never
say,
been a
hey, Aaron, I got
discipline,
an idea.
accountability. Nobody
And you
tells
hope
Rodgers anything, really. So
you hope he does it, but he's going to do what he wants to do.
yeah, there's not many coaches that the Jets could hire this cycle that would want to keep Rodgers and actually like be able to keep him in line. There might be a couple, but like that's probably the biggest part of the hiring cycle compared with like the Rodgers part of it. What guy is going to come in here, be able to accept Rodgers if they want Rodgers? It's not up to anybody, you know, with the last name Johnson. It's not up to anybody who does a podcast or has a Twitter account that just is a fan. It's up to the new GM and the new coach. And if on the off chance that they want Rodgers, like he has to be able to, you know, take orders a little bit. You know, you're not going to, somebody has to come in and run the show, and it's not going to be Aaron.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens there. I'm not sold on the idea that he'll be receptive to anything that he's told to do. I mean,
and Samini said 10 to 20% chance this morning on the ESPN radio with Jake Asman. So like, if that's 10 to 20% chance before, you know, Woody might or might not get involved, I hope that, like he said, you know, Woody might be smart enough to just let the new guys do it. And that's coming from Rich's mouth, who's like been around there to see like maybe, you know, maybe all this that's the only thing we'll hope on is like Woody sees all this. He doesn't have to respond to it, but like silently respond by hiring a guy and letting him do what he needs to do. Don't bring him in and say, well, this is my plan for Rodgers, and if you don't want to do it, sucks. Like, I don't think that's the case. And I think the interviews that we've seen, we'll see when they ramp up next week, but I feel like that's going to be the whole narrative of the interview is how much is strapped to the new regime or how much is already decided for the new regime. Because if nothing is decided for them, I think that puts them in a much better spot to put their own imprint on the team and do what they need to do with or without Rodgers. So,
yeah, I mean, this team sucks. That's
two more games. It sucks. Like we have 17 of these games, and you want them to stay as long as possible because we want to enjoy all 17. But when they're unenjoyable for the last 4, 5, 6 weeks, and you had 8 games staring you in the face with just a dead season, it's like, do you want to fast forward to the off season or do you still want to enjoy them? And it's like, it's hard to enjoy them when it looks like that last week because we had a chance to beat a team that was far superior, probably the biggest coaching discrepancy in terms of Sean McVay versus Jeff Ulbrich in the entire league.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, we had a chance. And I think it's upsetting. Like the Bears had a chance last night against Seattle and they blew it. It was 6-3. You know, they had a chance the whole game. And it's like, when you're in a game like that, that shows how bad of a team you really are because your coaches can't get you out of those situations with a victory.
Yeah, and Caleb Williams, man, that was one of the topics on the JetNation forums. They basically, you know, I said I want to kind of make a conscious effort to shout out the forums because they do come up with a lot of topics and takes on there that are worth discussing. I didn't watch that game last night. But the current thread on the forums that jumped out at me because it sounds crazy to ask it. I felt like the frequency with which Caleb Williams holds onto the ball too long would be, cause some hiccups in his development. Mm-hmm. But I mean, he got sacked, I think, 7 more times last night. Now, look, I didn't watch the game, but from a lot of what I've seen of him this year, there is a lot of just holding on to it too long. They have some good players. They have, they've got a couple of good receivers. It's not like these are the Adam Gase Jets and you don't have an NFL receiver on your roster. These are some good young players. And Caleb Williams sacked 7 more times. He's probably at this point, I didn't look at Zach's numbers, but in terms of holding onto the ball too long and letting himself get sacked, probably worse than Zach Wilson in that department. And that was a concern with Zach. Zach would either hold on too long and get sacked or freak out and make the throw too early to avoid getting sacked and not take the hit, which that seemed to be that's one thing I didn't see a lot of in college, but in the pros it popped up pretty quickly and never went away. Maybe a little later, right before he left when he strung together a couple good games. But either way, just in terms of reading what's in front of you and pulling the trigger, he might be behind where Zach Wilson was at this point. I believe they've lost 10 in a row, I believe, after starting out with, they had a winning record after their first few games. Any thoughts still on it? Like I said, I didn't catch the game. I don't know if you watched it, but Caleb Williams at this point in his career, I know he's a rookie, but I mean, this guy's putting up some record numbers in terms of the number of sacks he's taking, despite having some pretty good receivers to throw to.
Yeah, there was a moment, I think it was preseason, where CJ Stroud went over to Caleb, or maybe early in the season, he's like, "Hey, dude, you gotta stop taking these hits." And it didn't really seem like Caleb was receptive to it, just like visually. Obviously, I'm sure he took it and wants to learn from it. But then you watch the game this week, and it's like now you're 16 games in. You were the week 1 starter for your team. I don't think he's missed any games to my knowledge, and it's like you're doing the same shit. Like your offensive line is bad. We get that, but he doesn't have like you said with the Zach Wilson stuff. Like he didn't have those yips where he's throwing the ball too early because he's afraid to get hit. Almost, I want to say 80% of his sacks is like because he's holding on too long. There's offensive line sacks for sure where they just let up a free rusher. That's gonna happen. But like a lot of these sacks, and there was one of those like nerd stat charts that came out where Caleb Williams was like responsible for like 44% of the sacks that he's taken, and like the average, like Aaron Rodgers was at like 32 or 33%. Like it was quite a bit higher than even guys that like Aaron Rodgers looks like he takes a lot of his own sacks. It's not on the offensive line. So just
He's been sacked 67 times.
Yeah, it's like 4 per game. It's absolutely ridiculous. Like you cannot sustain that. And that's the thing on film that transferred over from USC. And shout out to our guy Chris Schubert because he did not have him as QB1. But that's the type of stuff that if it doesn't get ironed out quickly, it's not gonna be good for you in the long term. He's already going to be on a second coaching staff. They fired all their coaches, so he's going to be on a second offensive scheme. And he's got talent around him, so hopefully they can, put a line together. But it's a lot on him at this point. And watching the game last night, like I said, they had a chance to win, and he threw a pick, and I don't think the pick was. I mean, it was a pick late in the game, whatever. But there's just times where he's dancing, and I'm like, dude, you can't do this. You can't run back 15
That's what
yards.
I mean.
You can't run back 15 yards, barely throw it past the line of scrimmage, take a huge hit in the meantime, and then get peeled up off the pavement and have to come back in for second and third down. It's like you're not doing yourself justice by playing this like hero ball. Just play within the timing of the offense, and I think things will look better for you. But it comes down to trust and timing and all that, and he just doesn't have it right now.
All right. With their loss last week, the Jets currently sit 9th in the NFL in draft order at 4-11, tied with the Panthers at 4-11. But looking at worst case scenario, Dylan, the worst in terms of draft position would be the Jets win their next 2, getting them to 6 wins. Currently, the 6-win San Francisco 49ers are sitting at the 11th pick, so the Jets wouldn't be able to drop below that. Unlikely they win. But now listen, if Buffalo sits all their starters this week and Aaron Rodgers and Devontae are, trying to put on a show, maybe they pull out a win. I doubt it. I can't see it happening. I don't know who Buffalo's backups are. Like who? I think they have a veteran. Who's their QB2? It's not Trubisky, is it? You're muted. Is it Trubisky?
That's what I was thinking. I think it's Trubisky, but I'm not sure. They're still playing for the 2 seed though. I don't think they're gonna bench their starters this week, and I would assume it's probably gonna be like 31, 38-10 if I had to guess. And you just gotta. Maybe that one touchdown, like you said, is to Devontae, but yeah, I don't know. This game is pretty bleak for the Jets because I don't see them sitting their starters.
Yeah, that's that's basically a spot where, like I said, if they win their last 2, the worst they can do.
I think they're guaranteed a top 10 no matter what.
Yeah, they should be sitting there with a top 10 pick.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to see. Curious to see what happens. This Buffalo O-line, I haven't watched them this year, other than when the Jets played them. But the guy they took last year, Osiris Torrance, I haven't really heard a lot about him playing well. And he's a guy that I loved coming out of Florida. I thought he was going to be a monster. And then Cedric Van Pran, who they took this year out of Georgia, who doesn't really play much. He's got a handful of snaps. Curious to see if he gets some run if Buffalo does go with their backups, because he was a guy that I really liked. He was one of those guys that you're like, what the teams know about him that they're not taking him earlier than that, because he was being touted as a top 50 pick. And then I believe he went on day 3. He went really late. So we'll see Cedric Van Pran.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a guy that I really liked. And
I'm sure we'll
just
see him
getting
in the second half
yeah,
based
that's
on
what
the
I'm
way the
thinking.
game's
Even if they
going.
go with the starters, they should be able to build up a lead pretty quick,
Yeah.
and then go with the backups after that and see how they look. But I don't see the Jets being a team unless the Jets go with some of their backups. I don't see the starters playing very hard through this one. Probably not. Probably not in the cards, and I think they know they're not going to win this one. But we'll see. We'll see how that one transpires.
Although, if you have a 100% chance to get a top 10 pick and you're sitting at like 7 or 8 currently, I think it's 9 you said after yesterday.
Yeah, yeah, they're sitting at
Do you
9
do
at
you
4
just
and
root for
11.
the wins? Like, or does losing out to you actually make a huge difference from like 7, 8 to 9 or 10? Like, does that make a huge difference to you? I know we're not in the range for a
I mean,
quarterback either way.
here's the thing: you
You
have
just want
one,
the
two,
best pick.
three, four, five teams ahead of them at 3 wins. How many of those teams fall below the Jets if they get a fourth win?
Right.
Strength of schedule and all that. We won't know until that game is played and those
Yeah.
results are in. But
Chicago winning last night would have been huge
yeah,
because they would have been
yeah,
5
that
and
would have.
11 at that point. And like you said, I don't think the Jets are getting 5 this week. So it would have came down to next week against Miami if we
Let's see
could
them.
even pass the Bears.
Let's look at the remaining schedule of the teams in front of them.
Okay.
So New England has the Chargers and the Bills. They have the Bills week 18, week 18. So the Bills might rest their starters for that
That might
one.
be yeah. Yep.
That's New England. Jacksonville has got Tennessee and Indy. I mean, Tennessee.
Those games could go
They're tied.
anyway.
They're 3 and 4 right now in draft position.
Yep.
Um,
So no ties there. We don't want a tie there.
yeah.
Probably we
Not
want the Titans to win because we have the tiebreaker over the Jags. And in my opinion, it's like which team needs the quarterback more? I want that team to win so that they have worse draft
yeah.
position because I would rather try to trade up with Jacksonville, who doesn't need a quarterback, if that's the route we choose, and then try to trade up with a team like Tennessee, who's probably looking at their pick like, oh, I could get a quarterback at this spot. So no, we're going to hold on to it. So yeah, I think the
Cleveland's got
Titans win.
Miami and Baltimore. They're probably losing both.
Cleveland, yeah.
Now the Raiders, they've got the Saints up next, followed by
And
the
they've been
Chargers.
close. They've been close to winning some games. I think they just did win a game not too long ago. So like the Raiders are playing themselves out of position, which is
The
funny
Raiders won this past week. Yeah, they dropped from 2 to 6.
because I was told the Raiders were getting Shadur Sanders and Mike Vrabel within the last 3 days, and it's like I don't know if they keep winning games. How are you supposed to get Shadur Sanders at pick 7?
And that's again that New Orleans man. I bet especially if it's Spencer Rattler again, who has not been good. Then you've got the Bears picking 7th. They've got 1 game left. They've got Green Bay, who might be resting their starters. So
They might, yeah.
So we'll see what happens there. And Carolina, I think Carolina's going to steal a win. They've been playing well.
Yeah, they play I
They've
think
got
2
Tampa
divisional
this
games.
week, but they've got Atlanta in the final game. That
Atlanta,
could be a
yeah,
win
yeah.
for them.
Yep. And they're like
So
you said, they're playing tough. I feel like anything could happen with Carolina. Bryce Young's playing pretty well, so
I think there is a world where the Jets could jump to 6, somewhere in that 6, 7, somewhere in that range, versus right now being 11. And it's funny, even with the rooting for draft position, I say that I am, and I understand the importance of it. But while I'm watching the game, I can't not root for the players. So it's a weird thing.
yeah,
It's like
weird.
I want the draft pick, but I'm like, as I'm watching the game, I'm still getting mad when they screw up. I'm still yelling when they drop a pass. So it's weird. It's almost like it's a oxymoron or contradiction, whatever you want to
The
call
only
it.
thing that really changed in the way I root is like if the opponent has a player on my fantasy team, I root for him now. Like I had Brian Thomas Jr. on the Jags, and he went for 105 and 2 touchdowns against us, and we won. So like it was the perfect storm. But like if Brian Thomas did that and we lost, it would have been like, oh, that sucks. But hey, I'm closer to winning money, so I'm not too mad at it.
Right.
But
Little
yeah, Spencer,
semi-Jets related news here. Cole Pennington, his son, has re-entered the transfer portal.
oh jeez.
I guess things didn't work out at Marshall. He entered the transfer portal and signed with the University of South Dakota, and then tweeted out a few minutes ago that due to unforeseen circumstances, I am re-entering the transfer portal. So Cole Pennington, keep an eye. Dude, there are so many former Jets who have kids who are like getting ready to be in the draft.
Yeah.
Some of them playing well, some of them not so much. Like Elijah Green, Victor Green's kid, played really well for North
Yeah, we
Carolina a
talked
couple
about
years
him, yeah.
ago. And now he's with not Utah, Texas Tech. I forget where, but he's not playing a whole lot. And I can't remember if he's transferring because so many of these guys have COVID extra eligibility years. But Elijah Green liked him a lot. Liked him at UNC, hard worker. When he got opportunities, he produced. You've got Ray Mickens' kid who had a big game the other day. It was funny. I had just watched him the previous week. I watched Clemson, I believe West Virginia, specifically to watch Mickens. He had himself a really good game, couple of PBUs, had an INT. And then I guess this past week in the college playoff, I think he had an interception. So you've got Mickens, you've got Green. Again, you've got Chad Pennington's kid bouncing around. Again, he won't be coming out in the draft anytime soon. But yeah, Mickens and Green are two that come to mind. Oh, Pete Kendall's kid, I think might be going to the Senior Bowl. Or maybe he just announced his draft eligibility. That he was coming out. I saw a tweet the other day, Boston College, or maybe he heading to a bowl game somewhere. Pete Kendall's son, the offensive line out of Boston College. So, look, go get them all. The nostalgia, if they can play, go get them.
You feel that way about the coach too, as far as like Aaron Glenn?
Well, as I've said before, if they're going to go defense, he's my first choice.
Sure.
But I just don't want them to go defense.
Yeah.
You know, I understand that Vrabel's a good candidate. You know, Vrabel, maybe I'd want Vrabel more than Glenn just because we know he's at least competent.
Mm-hmm.
But I have no doubt Aaron Glenn will be competent. I think Aaron Glenn will be very good.
Sure.
But if you want to make the case of proven versus unproven, fine. But I still think I would prefer Aaron Glenn.
Yeah. I think what separates it for me between those two specifically is like Vrabel hired 2 OCs that became head coaches. So like that gives me, some kind of confidence that whoever he brings in as his OC this time around, at least the first time, is probably going to be legitimate and good. Obviously, it was Matt LaFleur the first time. So I joked, I was like, what if Vrabel said no to the Jets because he wanted to bring Mike LaFleur as his offensive coordinator to his new destination? And we know how that went. And I
think Mike LaFleur would say no.
No, that's what I'm saying. Mike LaFleur would shut that down immediately. Yeah. The report came out from the.
I thought you said if the Jets said no, if he wanted to hire LaFleur.
No, I don't know who would say no faster. Probably, like Woody, Mike, either Mike. It's like, but the Athletic report came out the week Mike LaFleur comes back to MetLife. I think that's a little funny.
Yeah, I've seen people talk about that, like, oh, the timing of these articles. Like, when are they supposed to write them? Like. It's not like they're getting this bombshell info and being like, hey, let's sit on this stuff for 2 months and then put it out.
Zach said he's been sitting on it for 6. They've been working on it for 6. They've been working on it for 6 months. All these articles.
Yeah, but not sitting on it. I think it comes out when it's ready. I mean.
No, I agree with that point. But like, there's timing involved with some of it for sure.
I think
when you have no coach or GM, I mean, who else are you going to fire at? Like these articles would have come out about Joe or about Robert if they were still here, but they're not. So
of course, yeah. I mean, it has to be relevant. You're not going to write about guys who are gone.
Right.
But yeah, the whole like the world is against us conspiracy thing. It's like, no, you're just a bumbling organization. And because again, I can't remember if this is since we last did a show. I know we talked about, how because I think it happened the day after our last show. Second or third time this year, they asked Aaron Rodgers about it. No denials. No, it's BS. No, don't listen to it.
It's not any of the players' responsibility to deny it. If anybody was to deny it,
if it was fake and they asked you about it, you'd be like, oh, I'm not so sure about that. You wouldn't be like, we need to stop leaking this stuff to the press.
Well, that's what he said, and I think he leaned into the whole Brick Johnson thing. I think he leaned into that jokingly in his presser and was like, I've never been released by a teenager before. So like,
well, that was with McAfee, right? Because McAfee kind of dragged that out of him.
Oh no, it was McAfee, and then the next day, and so he played along with the joke in the media. Yeah, the Wednesday after they followed up in the media, but he did make the joke originally on McAfee. You're right, but it's like I think that was more leaning into it jokingly, like, oh yeah, if you guys think Brick runs it, like I'm not going to be the one because it's clear that.
I think they didn't give him a choice. They went on about it for a couple minutes, so he kind of had to comment. But of course, he's not going to be critical. So he's like, "All right, how can I make a joke about this?"
Yeah, and it's not, like I said, it's not his place to say, "Oh, that's absolutely not true." I was just at dinner with Chris, and we talked, whatever. Because Chris is the only one that I think Rodgers is like cool with at this point. I don't think him and Woody are, they're fine. It doesn't seem like Woody wants him back. It doesn't seem like Rodgers cares what he thinks. And I think Rodgers kind of says it the most logically. He's like, whatever the new regime wants to do with me, that's what's going to happen. He's like, if we have a conversation before anybody's hired, I would be surprised. And that's kind of like what I'm saying. Nobody with the last name Johnson should make the decision, but we never know.
Yeah, I imagine they'll have heavy influence one way or the other, especially again, we've talked about the cap hit, we've talked about the possibility of a pay cut, which Rodgers has said he's open to, but I think it's going to be a matter of how much of a pay cut are you willing to take, because it's not as if, let's see.
But that's the way to Woody's heart, though, is to say, hey, I will give you money back again.
I think any owner, like if you're an owner, and you have a guy with a $60 million dead cap hit coming up,
and I can lessen it by like 20 million and make it 40 million for you to absorb even when I'm not here. I think that speaks volumes to Woody of like his willingness to participate. And I think that's what it all comes down to is Rodgers' willingness to participate financially, schematically, emotionally. I think he's emotionally invested, but I don't think his head in a losing season is where it needs to be. Obviously he wants to start all 17 games. I'm not going to fault him for that, but we've already beat the selfishness. That's the part that I can't get over right now.
Yeah. And it would bother me a lot if they had, like, if Jordan Travis was healthy and they were starting Rodgers. I'd be like, yo,
if they had any
on the field, what? Because we're not going to get to see Tyrod Taylor. I'm going to be upset.
Yeah, people losing their shit because we're not watching Tyrod Taylor get hurt in a losing season. Like, no, I think they're playing it smart now and just letting Rodgers play all 17, get that accolade for himself. And honestly, he said it on McAfee. He said if there's no, or to the media actually on Wednesday, if there's no off-season surgery for Rodgers, I think that increases his chance of wanting to play. He could still retire, but I still think if he has no off-season surgery,
if he doesn't have to rehab,
which we have the hamstring, which is like almost torn off the bone at some degree at some point this season, the MCL, which he just got last week, which he's playing through, no x-rays, no scans or anything. But if there's no off-season surgery, I think that increases his want to play next year.
Yeah, I think the ability to just have a normal offseason without rehabbing from an injury will play a big part in that in that
I don't know. Did you watch the documentary Enigma?
Like I said, man, I can't find it on Netflix out here.
So dumb. But like he even said, he's like, I don't want to go out a bum. I don't want to go out on a cart. He's like, I still want to know I have something left in the tank, which makes me think even if he is healthy and he plays through all these last 2 games healthy and fine, he could still retire because he doesn't want to risk coming back next year, getting hurt and not playing through it, and then being like, okay, shit, now I really have to hang it up and I'm going out like a bum. So like there's just so many decisions that have to be made. And like we've been asking these questions to each other for 7 weeks now. So it's like we're getting tired of the conversation.
I'm so tired of it.
And they haven't even started the conversation to a degree. You know what I mean? Like there's, inner like conversations probably within the building, but no like concrete Rodgers exit interview. We're going to wait and see. Go take your darkness retreat or whatever you need to do.
I'll tell you what, if the new regime, once the new head coach and GM are in place, if there's not a decision on Rodgers within a couple days, I'm going to be pissed off.
I think within the first week, there needs to be an acknowledgement of we're moving forward or we're not. Now go do what you need to do, Rodgers. And if you come back after that and say, I'm going to retire, just make it be before free agency and the draft like he tried to do last year with Green Bay.
They're not going to – I don't think they would let it get to that point.
I think what Green Bay did was they said, we're going to move forward with you. And then when he went into the darkness, they were like, oh, we're shopping you. So it was very wishy-washy for them. Just have that exit interview or wherever when those new guys are hired and explain, hey, I'm going to do this and I have this decision made. You guys have this decision made. When I come out of this, we'll move forward with the plan. And if that doesn't happen, maybe he's probably gone regardless of who's brought in.
Yeah. And by the way, I understand that if I'm pissed off, the Jets don't care. The way I said that, I honestly believe there are fans out there who think that when they say they're going to be angry, like it matters. I know it doesn't matter. I'm just –
no.
That was like the number of people was like, oh, they better not do this or I'm going to be so mad. And like –
they're going to do it anyway.
Sleep because there's an angry fan. The entire fan base is angry for the last 10 plus years.
And that's like the whole like don't go to the game stuff. Like stop. Like I get it. The easiest way to tell Woody we're not interested is empty seats in the stadium. But like that's not the way to do it, because they're still going to make stupid decisions, whether there's 10,000 or 40,000 or 70,000 Jets fans in that stadium. They're still going to make stupid decisions. Don't think that you influence it enough, like one individual person. Do what you want to do with the team. Like I hate telling people how to fan. Like, if you want to root for the loss, root for the loss. Me, I'm rooting for wins. I want Buffalo to not have the 2 seed, because I want to see Buffalo go to Kansas City earlier in the playoffs and have to play Mahomes and lose because they've already beaten him in the season. And I want to ruin Miami's chances. If Miami's still in it next week and has like a prayer of a chance, I want to shut that door completely. We should have done it 2
I
weeks
feel
ago.
different on Buffalo because I feel like at least Josh Allen is likable. I would kind of like to see him get the Mahomes.
I want to end his
monkey off
MVP. I want to end his MVP run again. The Jets defense has done it before. And I want to see, because I want Lamar to win it, or I want Saquon as my secondary option to win it. I don't want to see Josh Allen win MVP. He's a likable guy, sure, but I don't want to see him win MVP. And after his O-line bought him the chain for Christmas that says MVP on it, I really don't want him to win MVP. Just ruin that whole chain.
That's dumb. I didn't. That's stupid.
Yep.
Just from it's weird. I don't believe in jinxes, but I wouldn't do some stuff like that.
Right. It's putting the cart before the horse. It's like getting the Heisman tattoo in week 6 of your senior year, and then you don't get the Heisman, or like you get the Super Bowl trophy and you never win a ring. It's like stuff like that. Like, guys just get out over their skis.
Yeah. But like, I don't know. Just at this point, I find Mahomes tough to stomach.
I'm not saying I want the Chiefs.
There is a lot of whining and crying out of him, so I would like to see. But they just always find a way. Andy Reid is phenomenal. Everyone, I get that Andy Reid didn't win until he had Mahomes, but that dude went to Super Bowls with Donovan McNabb, who was not that good.
He was a perennial playoff team with Donovan and the guys. Kevin Cobb, I'm sure, one year was his quarterback. Like, he was. Yeah. He's a good coach. He's
Andy Reid's fan. To me, I mean, you put him up against Belichick. Like, you look at Andy Reid without Mahomes versus Belichick without Brady. You know what I mean?
Andy Reid is like in a different stratosphere than Bill Belichick.
Yeah. So I like Andy a lot. But again, not a big Mahomes guy. Is it bad that I dislike him more because of his brother than anything? His brother is so annoying that I'm like, and to be fair, I think since that SA got caught on video, he's been a lot less visible.
And the NFL
the fact that he's going around doing that stuff, I'm like, I can't root for this guy. Like, his brother's doing this to women in bars.
Yeah, the NFL pivoted real quick from Jackson to Taylor Swift, and like showing the family members of Mahomes now. It's now Travis Kelce's girlfriend. But I don't know. I think the distaste is just like, we knew it was going to eventually be the Patriots. It just sucks now that they're actually like the Patriots, and every single year it doesn't matter. They're now 15-1. Never scored 30 points this year, though. Hey, if that was the narrative for the Jets, it's like, we scored 30 points. I know it was a selfish 30 points that we scored it on, but like,
and they didn't need to,
No. They could have kneeled it and kicked a field goal.
They won every game 17-0. No one would care that they never scored 20. You're winning your games.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the Chiefs. They're just finding ways to win regardless of how it happens, and they're just becoming an annoyance more than anything.
Yeah, I got you on that. But we're gonna roll out. I'm gonna head to work. That's why we popped on early today to get this one in, get it done. I'm gonna be in Belgium again Sunday for the game, so I'll probably be watching in my hotel room. Not sure if I'll go live after the game or right after the game. We'll see. Anyway, we'll be back next week, and one or two of us will be on at some point during the week to break down the game and talk about any stories that pop up between now and then. Have a good one, Jets fans.